Got anything to say? Hello and welcome to the Indiana Century Podcast, hosted by Corey Easterday. Episode 19, Mapping the HSR Route. Part 1, More Than a Train. When most people think about high-speed rail, they think about trains, fast trains, trains that whisk you away from city to city in half the time. But that's not what this episode is about. This is about something bigger, something that changes the shape of the state itself. The Indiana Century Project proposes a high-speed rail line connecting Indianapolis, West Lafayette, and Kokomo. This is called the Innovation Triangle, a closed loop that turns 3 cities into one region, 30-minute commutes between vertices, a system that reshapes where people live, where they work, and how they connect. But before we can ride that train, someone has to build it. And building it means solving problems that most people never think about. Where does the track go? Who owns the land? How do you cross rivers, highways, and existing rail lines? How do you convince communities that this is good for them? Today, in episode 19, we talk about mapping the HSR route, the engineering challenges, the right-of-way battles, the station locations, and why this is not just a train, it is the spine of a new Indiana. But first, I need to tell you about a man who built something even bigger, a man who understood that infrastructure is not about concrete and steel, it is about power. Part 2, The Power Broker. This episode's featured book is The Power Broker, Robert Moses and the Fall of New York by Robert Caro. One of the most acclaimed books of our time, The Power Broker tells the hidden story behind the shaping and misshaping of 20th century New York and makes public what few had known, that Robert Moses was, for almost half a century, the single most powerful man in New York's history, the shaper not only of the city's politics, but of its physical structure and the urban problems that plague us today. In revealing how Moses did it, how he developed his public authorities into a political machine that was virtually a fourth branch of government, one that could bring to their knees governors and mayors by mobilizing banks, contractors, labor unions, insurance firms, even the press and the church, into an irresistible economic force. Robert Caro shows how power works in all the cities of the United States. If you have not read this book, it is a doorstop, over 1,200 pages. It took Caro 7 years to write it. It won the Pulitzer Prize. It is one of the greatest works of nonfiction ever written about infrastructure and power. Robert Moses was not an elected official. He never held a public office, but for 4 decades he shaped New York City and its suburbs more than any mayor or governor. He built highways, bridges, parks, and housing projects. He moved millions of people. He destroyed neighborhoods. He exercised power that was accountable to no one. Caro's book is not just a biography. It is a study of how infrastructure gets built. The political maneuvering, the legal battles, the compromises, the betrayals, and the vision. Here is what Caro teaches us that matters for Indiana. First, infrastructure is never just infrastructure. Moses built highways, but his highways were not neutral. They were designed to move cars, not people. They were designed to connect the suburbs to the city and to isolate the poor, the black, and the powerless. The roads were a tool of social engineering. Caro shows that every decision about where to put a bridge, a highway, or a park was also a decision about who would benefit and who would be left behind. Second, power flows to those who control the details. Moses was a master of the obscure. He knew zoning laws. He knew bond financing. He knew how to write legislation so that only he could interpret it. His opponents could not fight him because they could not understand what he was doing. The details were his weapon. Third, public support is fragile. Moses built things people wanted: parks, beaches, bridges. People loved him until they realized what he had destroyed. The support was real, but it was conditional. When the costs became visible, the backlash was fierce. Fourth, vision matters. For all of his flaws, Moses had a vision. He saw what New York could become. He built it. The vision was flawed, racist, elitist, anti-urban, but it was a vision. And that vision drove him to overcome obstacles that would have stopped anyone else. For Indiana, the lesson is clear. We need a vision. We need to understand the details. We need to build public support. And we need to remember that every decision about infrastructure is a decision about who we are and who we want to become. The Innovation Triangle is not just a train route. It is a statement about what Indiana values. It is a decision about who gets to participate in the future, and it will require the same kind of determination and the same kind of attention to detail that Moses brought to his projects. But we will do it differently. We will not destroy neighborhoods. We will not isolate the powerless. We will build with communities, not against them. That is the Indiana Century Way. Part 3. The Innovation Triangle. Before we talk about the route, let me explain why we are building it between these three cities. Indianapolis, the capital. This one's obvious. It is the economic engine, the governance and commerce hub. Indy is where most jobs are, where the legislature meets, where the banks and corporations are headquartered. It is the anchor of the state. Next is West Lafayette. This is where Purdue University is, the research and energy capital of our state. Purdue has one of the strongest nuclear engineering programs in the country. It already has a research reactor. It has the faculty, the students, and the labs to lead the energy revolution. The first SMR we plan on building will be built at Purdue. The Indiana Century Corps Energy Corps will train there. The Innovation Triangle is anchored in Purdue's intellectual power. Next is Kokomo and also Grissom Air Reserve Base. This is manufacturing and defense. Kokomo has a proud industrial history. Grissom has the runways, the security, and the space for the ICC boot camp and the HSR Institute. This is where we build things. This is where we train workers. This is where the manufacturing hub will live. So why this triangle? These three cities form a closed loop. Each brings something different. Each depends on the others for different reasons. And together, they create a region that is greater than the sum of its parts. The triangle is also symbolic. A closed loop is reinforcing. It is not simply a line from A to B. It is a system that feeds back on itself. Energy from Purdue powers the trains. The trains carry workers from Kokomo to Indianapolis. Indianapolis provides the governance and capital. The system is self-reinforcing. In essence, this is sovereignty. The goal is 30-minute commutes between the three vertices, and that would change everything. A 30-minute commute means you can live in Kokomo and work in Indianapolis, study at Purdue, and intern at a startup in Indy, or work at Grissom and take classes at Purdue. The region becomes one labor market, one education market, and one economic zone. That is sovereignty, not just building a train, but building a system that works for everyone. Part 4. The route. Now, let me get into the details. Where does the track go? The proposed route is roughly a triangle: Indianapolis, West Lafayette, Kokomo, back to Indianapolis. That's about 150 miles total. Segment 1 would be Indianapolis to West Lafayette. This is the most straightforward segment. The route follows existing rail corridors and highway right-of-ways. It's mostly flat, mostly rural. The biggest challenges are crossing the Wabash River and navigating the approach to Purdue. Segment 2 is West Lafayette to Kokomo. This segment runs through more varied terrain, some rolling hills, some agricultural land. The biggest challenges are the crossing at the Tippecanoe River and the approach to Grissom Air Reserve Base. Segment 3, Kokomo to Indianapolis. This segment connects through the industrial corridor on the east side of the city. Some existing rail lines, some new track would have to be built. The biggest challenge is the approach to Indianapolis and integration with existing transit. Here are some of the engineering considerations that have to be taken when we're talking about high-speed rail. First is curvature. High-speed rail requires gentle curves, no sharp turns. The route must be laid out with strict radius constraints. Second is grades. Maximum grade of about 2 to 3%. No steep hills. The route must follow the train or cut through it. Next is bridges and crossings. These are rivers, highways, existing rail lines. Each requires a bridge or grade separation. Next is noise and vibration. High-speed rail is quieter than highways, but it still has an impact. Mitigation measures include sound barriers, berms, and setback requirements. Next is electrification. The trains will be electric, powered by the small modular reactors and renewable energy. That means overhead catenary wires or third rail power. And last are the station locations. Stations must be accessible, integrated with local transit, and designed for high ridership. Indiana has a huge advantage here because Indiana is very flat. That makes building high-speed rail easier than in mountainous states. The existing rail corridors and highway right-of-ways provide a foundation. The land is available, the geology is stable. This is not California where you have to tunnel through entire mountains. This is Indiana. We can build this. Part 5, Right-of-Way. Engineering is hard, but right-of-way is harder. Right-of-way is the legal right to build on someone else's land. For a high-speed rail line, that means acquiring or leasing hundreds of parcels of land. Each one is a negotiation. Each one is a potential lawsuit and a potential delay. So what options do we have? The easiest is existing rail corridors. We would use existing rail lines, upgrading them for high-speed rail. Many existing corridors have room to spare. This is cheaper, faster, and less land acquisition than trying to acquire private land. The cons are freight conflicts and curvature constraints. Next is highway right-of-ways. We could build alongside existing highways in the median or the shoulder. This is land that's already owned by the state. Minimal acquisition is required. This would add noise and add a safety constraint as well as our usual curvature constraints. Next option is new alignment. We could build new track on new land. This would be optimized for speed, and we wouldn't have the constraints that the other options have. It would be the most expensive and require the most land acquisition and have the most opposition. Last are utility corridors. We could use existing utility corridors other than rail, like power lines or pipelines. This is land that's already cleared, has minimal acquisition. However, we still have to consider curvature constraints and safety concerns. The likely approach will be a hybrid of all of these things. We will use existing rail corridors wherever possible. We'll use highway right-of-ways wherever it's practical. And we'll use new alignment where necessary. Now we have to talk about the idea of the Indiana Century's constitutional amendments. The Indiana Century Project includes a constitutional amendment for critical infrastructure corridors. This amendment does a few things. It establishes that high-speed rail corridors are a public good. It provides for eminent domain with 125% compensation to make sure that whatever land needs to be acquired is purchased at more than market value to make it fair. It requires community benefit agreements before the rail is built. It ensures that the process is transparent and accountable. The amendment is not a blank check. It requires fair compensation. It requires community input. It requires that the benefits be shared with the communities that are affected. But it also ensures that a handful of holdouts cannot stop a project that benefits millions. So what are these community benefit agreements? These would be legally binding contracts between the state and affected communities. They ensure that the community gets something in return: sound barriers, new parks, job training, local hiring preferences. The goal is not just to build a train. The goal is to build a partnership. Part 6. Stations. The track is important, but the stations are where the magic happens. High-speed rail stations are not just places to get on and off a train. They are economic anchors. They will be the new main streets for towns that lost theirs. A well-designed station is the heart of a community. It should be walkable, not car-dependent, safe, accessible, and connected to sidewalks and bike paths. It should integrate with local transit, connecting to buses, rideshare, and bike networks so that no one needs a car to get on the train. It should be surrounded by mixed-use development, housing, retail, offices, so the station itself becomes a destination, not just a transit point. It should reflect the character of the local community and not be cookie-cutter in design. And it should include public spaces, plazas, green spaces, gathering areas that give people a reason to linger. There will be multiple stops along the lines of the Innovation Triangle, but focusing on the three main stations, we're talking about Indianapolis, where we could potentially use Union Station or a new site downtown. This would be near the center of the city. It would have transit connections, and it would become part of the economic hub. In West Lafayette, we would want it near Purdue campus, within walking distance. That way it has campus access, research park, student, and faculty ridership. In Kokomo, it would need to be downtown or near the industrial corridor. This would help economic development, workforce access, and high ridership. And for Grissom, it would need to be adjacent to the base. It would have Indiana Century Corps boot camp access, defense connectivity, and potential future expansion. So now let's talk about the vision. Each station becomes the center of a new community with transit-oriented development that includes vertical mixed-use buildings, local electric bus networks, and new main streets for towns that lost theirs. Part 7. The Indiana Century Corps Connection. So, who would build this rail? The Indiana Century Corps. The ICC Construction Corps would be trained to build infrastructure, whether it's small modular reactors or rail. They would be trained in heavy equipment operation, track laying, bridge construction, surveying, logistics, project management. The rail line is also a training ground. The ICC Construction Corps will learn by building. They will lay track, they'll build bridges, they will install signaling systems, they will electrify the line. They will do the work that no other private company wants to do, and they will do it with pride. We also need to talk about the Atterbury model. Ideally, the first cohort of the Construction Corps will come from nonviolent cannabis offenders. They will repair barracks at Atterbury. Then they will build the Indiana Century Corps boot camp at Grissom. After that, they will help build the rail line. The progression is deliberate. Start small, learn skills, build confidence. Then work together to tackle the big project. The ICC would have a specific career ladder. It would start with crew members, which are laborers and operators. This would provide on-the-job training so that they could one day become a journeyman. Journeymen are skilled operators and supervisors. They provide apprenticeship and classroom teaching experience. After that would be master. These would be project leads and managers. They would provide advanced training and experience for the whole organization. And the final tier is leadership. Program director, instructor. This would provide leadership training and leadership experience. The rail line is not just a project. It is also a school, it is a career, and it builds communities. Part 8. Objections and Responses. Objection 1. High-speed rail is too expensive. The cost is significant, but the cost of doing nothing is higher. The cost of congestion, lost productivity, and economic isolation is measured in billions of dollars. The rail line pays for itself over time, and it is funded through growth, not through taxes. Objection 2. No one will ride it. The data says otherwise. High-speed rail in other countries has proven ridership. The key is connecting the right cities with the right frequency. 30-minute commutes between the Innovation Triangle vertices create demand that does not currently exist. Objection 3. It will take too long to build. The first segment can be built in about 5 to 7 years. The full triangle in about 10 to 12. That is about a generation, but the alternative, doing nothing, takes forever. Objection 4. It will destroy rural communities. Yes, rail lines can divide communities, but they can also connect them. The key is design. Grade separations, pedestrian crossings, sound barriers, and community benefit agreements. We are not just building a train, we are building a partnership all throughout the state. Objection 5. Why not just improve highways? Highways are necessary, but they are not sufficient. You cannot solve congestion by adding lanes. It simply does not work. Induced demand ensures that more lanes means more traffic. Rail is different. It provides an alternative. It reduces pressure on highways and lowers congestion. Part 9. Connecting the dots. The high-speed rail line is not an isolated project. It is part of an integrated system where every piece reinforces the others. The small modular reactors and renewables generate the clean, reliable power that runs the trains. The state-owned fiber backbone runs alongside the rail line, bringing universal broadband to every community along the route. The train carries workers and components between the manufacturing hub at Kokomo, the research and design power at Purdue, and the governance and finance center in Indianapolis. The train carries agricultural goods from farm to factory to market. It carries patients from rural clinics to specialty hospitals. And it carries ICC members from training campuses to the job sites across the state. In other words, the train is the spine, and everything else attaches to it. Part 10. Conclusion and Preview. This episode was about the rail line, the spine, the Innovation Triangle, the engineering, the right-of-way, the stations, and the workforce. The featured book was The Power Broker by Robert Caro. Robert Moses built New York's infrastructure. He did it with vision, determination, and a ruthless attention to detail. He also did it by destroying neighborhoods, isolating the poor, and exercising power without accountability. We can do better. We will build with communities, not against them. We will ensure that the benefits are shared. We will honor the history of the places we touch. The Innovation Triangle is not just about a train route. It is a statement about who we are and who we want to become. It says Indiana is connected, Indiana is forward-looking, and Indiana is building something that will last for generations. When we complete this line, we will have 30-minute commutes between 3 major economic centers. We will have regional economic integration that makes the whole state more competitive. We will have the new main streets built around stations that bring life back to towns that lost theirs. We will have a workforce trained to build and maintain this infrastructure for decades to come. And we will have a fiber backbone running alongside the tracks, bringing universal broadband to every community along the route. Next week, episode 20, What High-Speed Rail Means for My Main Street. We talk about the potential high-speed rail has for a stop in any town, a local perspective on what it would mean for a train in your community. We'll talk about the opportunities, the fears, and the hope. Before we get there, I want you to think about something. The people who built the Transcontinental Railroad did not see the full vision. They just saw the next mile. They drove the next spike. They built it one piece at a time. That is what we do. 1 mile at a time, 1 station at a time, 1 community at a time. I am Corey. This is the Indiana Century Podcast. And remember, sovereignty isn't given, it is built.